The college football playoffs' decision to remain a 12-team field through the 2026 season did not bring clarity so much as it reignited every unresolved argument about access, equity, and identity in modern college football. Instead of quieting debate, the announcement sharpened it, especially for programs living on the razor's edge of Selection Sunday. Few felt the weight of that reality more acutely than Notre Dame, whose exclusion from the 2025 playoff continues to linger as both a cautionary tale and a rallying cry. Into that tension stepped Leonard, the former Fighting Irish quarterback and current Indianapolis Colts signal caller, offering a perspective that cut directly against the prevailing narrative and, in doing so, reopened one of the sport's most emotional fault lines. Leonard's take was simple, unapologetic, and certain to provoke. Notre Dame, he said, should stay independent, not because of stubborn tradition or nostalgia, but because, in his view, the math still favors autonomy. The money, Leonard argued, does not make sense for Notre Dame to join a conference. Coming from a quarterback who once wore the uniform and now sees the sport from the vantage point of a professional locker room, the statement carried a different kind of weight. It wasn't a fan clinging to history or an administrator protecting leverage. It was a former player who lived the scrutiny, understood the stakes, and still believed independence was worth defending. That belief stands in stark contrast to the criticism Notre Dame absorbed after the 2025 season ended without a playoff berth. As the final rankings settled, the arguments followed familiar lines. Notre Dame's resume was strong but incomplete. The wins were real, the losses limited, the metrics favorable. Yet when conference championship weekend arrived, the Irish were idle, watching as others fought for titles, absorbed injuries, or added one more high-stakes data point to their profiles. In a playoff race decided by inches, optics matter, and Notre Dame's absence from that weekend became impossible to ignore. On paper, the idea of skipping a championship game sounds like an advantage. Rest is valuable. Health is priceless. There is no risk of a season-ending defeat. But context changes everything. Notre Dame entered that weekend balanced precariously on the bubble, strong enough to belong in the conversation, but vulnerable enough to be overtaken. While the Irish waited, Miami and Alabama stepped onto the field, their seasons hanging in the balance. The Hurricanes secured a decisive head-to-head advantage that ultimately proved pivotal, while Alabama, even in defeat, benefited from the committee's long-standing respect for teams willing to test themselves in conference title games. Leonard acknowledged that reality without resentment. Miami, he conceded, earned its place. Identical records and a head-to-head win are the kinds of separators the committee has always valued, even if its application of those criteria has not always been consistent. Alabama's case was more complicated, rooted in strength of schedule, perceived quality of losses, and the cumulative weight of playing one more game against elite competition. In that context, leaving out a team that did not play during championship weekend became easier to justify, even if it remained painful for those on the outside. What made the exclusion sting more deeply was what followed. As the playoff unfolded, Miami validated the committee's faith in emphatic fashion. Anchored by a defense that ranked 5th nationally in PFSN's CFP defensive impact grades, the Hurricanes powered their way through the bracket and into the national championship game. Each week they advanced, the argument grew louder. The committee got this one right, and with every Miami stop, every critical takeaway, Notre Dame's absence became more conspicuous. Yet the validation of Miami's inclusion did not erase the uncomfortable truth that Notre Dame, too, looked like a playoff team by almost every meaningful measure. The Irish quietly assembled one of the most complete rosters in the country. According to PFSN's CFP impact grades, Notre Dame finished inside the top 8 nationally on both offense and defense, a level of balance matched by only 2 other programs, Ohio State and Indiana. That kind of two-way excellence is often the calling card of championship contenders, not teams left watching from home. The contrast was impossible to ignore, particularly given Notre Dame's recent history. Just one season earlier, the Irish had played for a national title, proving that independence was not an automatic barrier to reaching the sport's highest stage. The 2025 team, though different in composition, carried the same disciplined identity, the same physical edge, and the same ability to win games in multiple ways. Whether they would have matched Miami's postseason run is unknowable, but the idea that they would have been overmatched feels increasingly difficult to accept. That tension sits at the core of Leonard's perspective. Independence, in his view, is not a weakness to be corrected, but a strategic choice that continues to make sense for Notre Dame's unique position. The financial realities are undeniable. Notre Dame controls its media rights, its scheduling, and its brand in a way no conference member can fully replicate. That autonomy translates into revenue, visibility, and leverage that extend far beyond a single playoff decision. For Leonard, sacrificing that independence to chase marginal playoff security is a trade-off that does not add up. Notre Dame appears to agree. Despite constant speculation, there has been no meaningful indication that the university is preparing to abandon its independent status. The administration has consistently signaled comfort with the current arrangement, even as the sport around it shifts and consolidates. Conferences grow larger, television deals balloon, and postseason formats evolve, yet Notre Dame remains rooted in a model that has served it for generations. The question, however, is whether that model will continue to hold in an era defined by razor-thin margins. With the playoff locked at 12 teams through 2026, every data point matters, every perception matters. One idle weekend can outweigh months of consistent excellence. As long as conference championship games exist as de facto play-in opportunities, Notre Dame will face the same scrutiny, the same skepticism, and the same vulnerability when it finds itself on the bubble. Leonard's comments do not dismiss that risk, they simply accept it. His stance reflects a broader Notre Dame philosophy that values control and identity over conformity. The Irish have long believed that their path should not mirror everyone else's, even if it sometimes costs them. That belief has produced championships, heartbreak, and everything in between. In a sport increasingly driven by uniformity, Notre Dame remains a contradiction, and Riley Leonard's words capture that defiance. Independence may not guarantee protection from exclusion, but it preserves something Notre Dame considers equally valuable: the freedom to define success on its own terms. Whether that freedom continues to justify the cost is a question the playoff will keep asking, season after season. For now, the answer from Leonard, and seemingly from Notre Dame itself, is unwavering.